wrong for sitting on my husband's lap during Thanksgiving dinner because all of the chairs at the table were taken? I, 28 female, have been with my husband, Sean, 33 male, for 2 years. Married for 5 months. Most of his family are decent people, but his mom can be a little passive-aggressive and tends to criticize me a lot. Sean sees it as her still not getting used to me being around, but I don't know, because she treats his ex, 𝘃𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗃, good. Mother-in-law says that 𝘃𝗂𝗲𝗀 has been around the family for ages and her past with Sean never affected her relationship with her. Fine. I never minded her attending every holiday and being around until yesterday. We had Thanksgiving at my mother-in-law's house. Sean went there before me, and when I arrived, it was already dinner time. Everyone was seated and I saw that all the chairs were taken. I asked mother-in-law why she didn't save me a seat, and she said sorry, and that one of her granddaughters decided to show up last minute and the chair was taken. I looked at her, then at 𝘃𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗃, who was sitting next to Sean, and tried to point out how I was more deserving of her chair since I'm the daughter-in-law. I know I shouldn't have said it, I know. Mother-in-law flat out said that 𝘃𝗂𝗲𝗀 is as much family as me and that it was rude to imply otherwise. 𝘃𝗂𝗲𝗀 was nodding confidently while glancing at me. I was so upset I wanted to leave, but decided to just sit on my husband's lap and act as casual as possible. I sat on his lap asking if he was okay with it. Don't worry, I'm petite and he's strong-built. And started eating so casually while smiling and complimenting the food and mentioning to Sean how warm and comfortable his lap was now and then. The table went awkwardly silent. Brother-in-law would try to break the silence and change the subject, but it somehow goes back to being awkward. Mother-in-law and 𝘃𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗃 were barely eating and were staring at each other, then at me, eyes wide open. I'm sorry, I still cannot get over the fact that your husband's ex is at your Thanksgiving dinner. Minutes later, 𝘃𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗃 excused herself to the bathroom and so did mother-in-law. It was still awkward, but I did my best to focus on dinner. Sean was eating as well. Later, there was just so much tension and mother-in-law was barely able to speak after 𝘃𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗃 left. She left early, like right after dinner. Sean and I went home and mother-in-law tried calling, but then called Sean and texted me saying that what I did was inappropriate and that I ruined Thanksgiving dinner and made it awkward. She said it wasn't her fault that chairs were taken and that I could have dragged a chair from the kitchen but acted childishly and made 𝘃𝗂𝗲𝗀 and family uncomfortable with how inappropriate I was. I need to mention that even if I took a chair from the kitchen, there was not enough space at the dinner table to fit the chair. Everyone was sitting next to each other. I don't understand why his ex. One is why his ex is there. Why she has a seat over you. I don't understand. Like, isn't it awkward on her half? Like, why is she there? I would never want to do that. Like people who go to your ex's Thanksgiving dinners and you don't have kids together. Why do you go? A guest stole our Thanksgiving turkey. I'm confused and frustrated and need to vent. We hosted Thanksgiving this year. Husband and I, our 2 kids, husband's siblings and nieces and nephews, and most importantly, husband's gravely ill mother. We're all at peace that this Thanksgiving and Christmas will probably be our last holiday together. It's been emotional and exhausting, but we really wanted to make a memorable day that everyone would enjoy. Our daughter Mary is visiting from college, and one day before she flew in, she says her boyfriend Chris is actually flying to our city to visit friends over the break. Mary asked if he could come over for Thanksgiving. We've never met Chris before, but to be honest, we're not wild about him. As soon as Mary started dating him, we started seeing some worrying changes in her. Our son, who is just a couple of years older, confided in us that Mary is getting into the party scene largely because of Chris. We've tried gently bringing up our concerns with Mary, but she shuts it down and has started to pull away from us. So because we didn't want to alienate her, we said Chris could visit, but they need to stay in separate rooms. She said that won't matter because he's booked a hotel room and she'll be staying there with him the whole weekend. Okay. Cut to Thanksgiving and Mary and Chris arrive. He's not the greatest. He makes a couple of rude and snide remarks throughout the visit and hits the alcohol way harder than is appropriate. My family was in a very earnest mood, if that makes sense. Lots of emotion, and he was just dismissive and flippant and cast a shadow on everything. At one point, everyone started telling stories about their favorite holidays at mother-in-law's house when she would go all out for family parties. My husband and I stopped working in the kitchen to join the conversation. When we go back to the kitchen after maybe half an hour, I went to check the turkey in the oven and it was gone. Completely missing. I asked my husband if he did something with the turkey and he was just as confused as I was. We looked all over the kitchen and house and couldn't find it. We go out to the living room and ask everyone if they know what happened to the turkey and no one knows what we're talking about. At this point, I realized Chris isn't around. I pulled Mary to the side and asked where he is because I don't want to jump to conclusions and make accusations. She said he had to leave to go meet up with friends. I asked her to text him and asked if he knows what happened to the turkey, and Mary kind of rolled her eyes. At this point, it's dawning on me that Chris probably stole the turkey and left out the back door while we were sharing stories with mother-in-law, but I'm so confused why anyone would do something like that. I can't bring myself to actually make the accusation out loud. So we were left in the terrible position of having everything else ready but no turkey. We had to break it to the family that we had no turkey and everyone was confused and sad. Mary said she had to get going to an event with Chris, which deeply disappointed me. I told her as much and she said that she'll see us again later this weekend. My in-laws went driving around to restaurants and grocery stores and pieced together enough stuff that we were able to have a meal much later than expected, but it felt like the whole day was ruined. Everyone was kind of murmuring together about Chris leaving around the time the turkey disappeared, but no one wanted to actually accuse him out loud because it's such an explosive allegation and there's not actually any proof. I'm just confused why anyone would do such a thing and heartbroken because my mother-in-law didn't deserve this at all. At one point, she teared up but pulled it together. I'm also increasingly angry with my daughter because I feel like I can't see anything because she'll just pull away more. Okay, they have an update. I was talking with my son today and he told me that last night Chris started taunting him over text about the missing turkey. So that settles it. Chris stole the turkey basically as a big fuck you to all of us. My son didn't say anything at the time because he didn't want to make people more upset than they already were. I've tried calling and texting Mary, but she is so far ignoring me. That's all I have to say about this. Am I wrong for canceling the plans for Thanksgiving after my parents called my brother's baby their first grandchild? I, 32 female, have been with my wife Ava, 34 female, for 8 years now, but we've been married for 5. She was a single mom of 3 kids when we started dating. She had 2 daughters, now 10 and 12, and a son, now 16. I've watched these kids grow up. I've read the bedtime stories, done bath time, the first days of school, PTA meetings, all of it. I very much consider them to be my kids, and they've been calling me mom for almost 6 years now. My brother Ivan, 28 male, just had a baby girl with his fiancée Sarah, 27 female. I love my niece, and my kids adore their cousin. My kids have been the only grandchildren on my side of the family since Ava and I got together, and there's never been a moment where my kids and my wife were treated like they didn't belong. My brother is their uncle, my mom and dad are their nana and pop. The kids see my family as their family, and I always thought that my family felt the same way about them. The kids and I were over at my brother's house just hanging out, and my parents ended up dropping by with gifts for my niece. Ivan laughed when he saw the toys and told my mom and dad that they're going to end up spoiling her rotten. My mom said since my niece is their first grandchild, of course they have to spoil her. My kids were sitting in the living room, and all of us and my youngest daughter looked hurt when she realized what my mother said. My son and my 12-year-old didn't fully react to it, but I could tell it bothered the both of them so. Sarah spoke up and said, "Oh, you mean first grandbaby, not first grandchild." My dad shook his head and replied that my niece was their first grandchild. I didn't want my kids to keep sitting there and listening to that, so I handed my son my keys and told him to wait in the car with his sisters. When they were gone, I asked my parents why the hell they'd say that my kids weren't their grandchildren, and my mom said they couldn't be their grandchildren because they weren't really my children. My wife and I were going to be hosting Thanksgiving at our house this year, but I told my parents that if they didn't view my kids as their family, then they could just host a meal at their own house with their real family while I spent the holiday with mine. I left before they could say anything else to me, and my wife and I reiterated to the children that they will always be my kids and I will always be their other mom, regardless of our DNA. My brother is pissed at me now because he thinks I reacted too harshly and that I should try to see where my parents are coming from. My mom texted saying that she and my dad love the kids, but they still aren't their grandchildren, and she hopes that we can come to understand that because she doesn't want this to ruin my niece's first Thanksgiving. I haven't replied back. I meant what I said, but I'm worried that maybe I'm reacting too harshly. Am I wrong for sharing my son's teacher's Instagram account with the other parents? My son is 4, and this is his first year in preschool. His teacher is called Mary, and she's roughly in her early 30s if that matters. We first met her on Monday when dropping him off, and I didn't get the best vibes from her, so I looked her up on social media. She posts provocative photos and is very active politically, going to marches and events and stuff like that. The vibes were already far from immaculate, but what I saw made me dislike her even more. I talked it over with my wife, and we decided to ask some of the other parents what they thought of her. We reached out to them and created a WhatsApp group where we started talking, and I shared her account there. It wasn't well received from most parents either, mostly because of the provocative photos. Nothing happened for a couple of days, but a fellow parent kept tracking her account and she saw that she had uploaded a selfie with 3 of her students on Thursday. The parents were furious about that and they went to the district supervisor first thing Friday morning. Since I was the one who started the group, he called me to confirm and hear my side of the story, and he asked me if I could come to his office in the evening. I did. She was there along with a few other parents, and we all started talking and trying to explain the issue. Voices were raised, and at one point, she started accusing me of stalking her and then sharing her account to perv on her with other dads. I was like, "Lady, I was just trying to see what kind of person is going to be teaching my son," but she wasn't having any of it and kept arguing. Things escalated even more, and the other parents demanded that she be removed from the class. I didn't outright concur to join with them, but I didn't object either. The supervisor ordered her to take down the photos along with any she had uploaded from her previous students, but he hadn't reached a conclusion. Rumor has it that he's considering placing her in another school because the year just started, but we'll find out Monday, I suppose. Anyways, was I the asshole here? Should I just keep my worries to myself? There's an edit. I can't respond to everyone, so I'll respond here. Yes, the 3 kids' faces were visible. Their parents were among those of us who were present in the supervisor's office yesterday. 2. I wasn't the one who found the pictures, neither those of the 3 kids nor those of previous students. Provocative meaning thirst traps. If that's giving me pause for someone's credibility as a teacher makes me an asshole, then I guess I'm an asshole. 4. She's participating in a far-right party's event. I don't really vote or care about politics, I just don't like that particular party. I don't even live in the US. Am I wrong for showing my twin sister's OnlyFans to our parents? I, 18 female, and my identical twin sister, 18 female, have always had a competitive relationship. We've always fought over everything: guys, clothes, friends, etc. But our relationship came to a halt a few weeks ago when a mutual guy friend of ours sent me a link to an OnlyFans profile with an attached message that stated, "This you?" Confused, I clicked on the link and was shocked to discover that the profile belonged to my twin sister. The profile picture was very clearly a scantily clad image of her, and the username was my nickname that literally everyone in my life uses. I asked our friend about it, and he told me that he discovered the profile through Twitter and then subscribed to the profile, which included dozens of videos of her doing spicy things to say the least, solo and with partners, all of which with her face showing. I was floored and in a fit of rage showed the profile to our parents. I mean, literally anyone who saw that profile that knows us would immediately assume that it's me, considering she's basically going by my name. Our parents forced her to delete the profile and she hasn't spoken to me since, claiming that I not only ruined her main source of income, but also betrayed her trust. However, I think that she betrayed my trust by going by my nickname. So, am I the asshole? I just caught my dad cheating and the woman he's cheating with is pregnant. So I, 16 female, decided to go to a local coffee shop and get a drink. When I spotted my dad with this woman, not too big of a deal, they could have been coworkers or something. Then he started brushing her hair out of her face while he was talking and he had a big smile on his face. Definitely something you don't normally do with just a friend or a coworker. So I started recording. Then they kissed, which where I'm from, you definitely don't do with a friend. I also noticed this woman is in her mid to late 20s while my dad is 41. I also noticed this woman is very much pregnant, probably around 8ish months. After I got my drink, I decided to confront my dad and walk up to them. I just said, "Hey dad, what are you doing?" He looked shocked, but then said, "Oh, just getting coffee with a friend." I decided to be brave and said, "So you kiss all of your friends like that?" I saw panic in his eyes and he quickly said, "Don't tell your mom." I then asked if the baby was his. He said a quick yes while not even looking at me. I just said, "Wow, you had at least 9 months to tell my mom about your affair, yet you haven't. I'm really disappointed in you." Then I left. My dad has a job in business, so we always thought he was busy at work, but we now see where he spent some time. I was going to text my mom right away, but she's at work right now and she's a nurse, so I don't want to distract her from an important job. So I'll tell her when I get home from school. I feel really bad for my mom, and she told me this morning that my dad had an early morning meeting. I could see sadness in her eyes, and I asked her what's wrong. She admitted to wishing he was home more to be with us. So yeah, I can't believe my dad did this to my mom, and she definitely deserves better. So I told my mom, and she was upset and cried for a while and wanted to be left alone. Then my dad came home with flowers to try and suck up. Long story short, they yelled and argued a lot, and now my mom and I are packed up going to my grandma's.